Center. You are listening to the Beastie Boys with N3s off of their Check Your Head album. And I just love this track too much. I gotta let it play for a minute. Turn it up.
This is a good track.
I just love the shit out of some Beastie Boys. And if you want to pick up that track, if you like it as much as I did, you know what to do. Go to the support the show link on farfromcenter.com, click to the Amazon banner, and pick it up. Pick up the track in threes, or you know what, pick up the whole album. This is the Beastie Boys. They basically defined a generation. I know when I was a kid in high school, this album came out. And my friends and I just loved it. We basically had it on repeat the entire summer that it came out. And I just can't say enough for it. I mean, it's one of those bands that kind of bridged the generational gap. And I love me some Beastie Boys, man. And unfortunately, their instrumental stuff didn't get a lot of play on the radio. So if you like that, you know, if you heard Gratitude and Pass the Mic and all the other stuff that was so famous from that album, check out this. Their instrumental stuff is pretty great. And I want to talk a little bit about friends at the beginning of this episode. You know, speaking of my friends and I that were all listening to the Beastie Boys when it came out, I got a thing. You know, my dad always used to tell me that you'll be judged by your friends. And I have a little caveat to that because friends are something that I've always regarded very highly in my life. And I think you can really tell who your friends are when you need something, when you need a favor, when you need help, when you need whatever it is. Some people will be there immediately, and then some people will just kind of go, oh, man, I'm busy. I got other stuff to do. And I've had so many of my friends come through and help me in the last few months and the last year or so when I really needed it. You know, when I was writing Love Me When I'm Gone, one of my big things was I wanted everybody from my team, from my old ODA, to bless off on it. Because if any of them were kind of sketchy about it or didn't want it or were weird about it, I didn't want to put it out there. I didn't want there to be any bad blood with my brothers and I. And they all blessed off on it, so we went ahead and it's out there. Mike Dawson is here. You know, he is one of the busiest guys in entertainment. He just wrapped 6 car commercials. He does the #1 podcast in the world. He does so much stuff, and he's helping me here. I mean, he's helping us get this thing off the ground, and I can't say enough thanks to him. My buddy Ian, you know, I talked about him, you know, the toughest son of a bitch I've ever met a couple episodes ago. If you've checked out the farfromcenter.com website lately, he has gone through, and he's in Germany. He's a ocean away from us. And every morning I wake up and I get messages from him saying, hey, go check out the site, because he's just going through and adding all this stuff to it. We've been having trouble getting it on iTunes. He went through, stayed up all night and figured out how to get it on. He's created a new slug. He revamped the entire website. He's got the On It banners on top now. Just phenomenal. And he just knew that it needed to be done, and he got it done because he was going to help me out, and he's an awesome friend. Brother Robert Johnson, he has his own podcast, he has his own family, he has his own job. He's been recording these famous Freemason segments from us. He does his own Whence Came You podcast. It's a really popular podcast in the Freemason world, and all these other things that he does. And I'm getting emails from him every couple days saying, hey, bro, I just recorded another segment for you. Here it is. Jennifer Robinson from USA Cares has given us these USA Cares moments. And my buddy Mike Amobile from Mike Amobile and Run Over Twice, when I told him that we were going to be doing this podcast and I really wanted to have music involved, he could have been a pain in the butt and said, well, we're going to have to do the ASCAP and BMI and, pay for all this and do all this. He said, no, you know what, brother, you need some help. I'm going to help you out. So here you go. Play this music, because I've been listening to his music since college. I love it. That's why I play one of his tracks every show, because I love it so much. Speaking of Mike, they were at the Texas Music Awards last night, and I'm no longer going to call them the 2013 Texas Music Awards nominated. They're now the 2013 Texas Music Awards winners, Mike Amabile and Run Over Twice. So again,
Nice.
Yeah, I they were so busy. I didn't even put the dots together that they were traveling to the awards this weekend. And when I got home from the interview we taped for episode 4 with Jeannie, I got home last night pretty late, and I checked my Facebook, and I had pictures of Mike up on stage accepting his awards. That is awesome. So to all of you guys, to all of my friends that have been, pulling together and doing everything they could to help out, get this thing off the ground and to help me out whenever I need it, I got to say thank you to all of you. I couldn't be happier for you. I couldn't be prouder of you, and I couldn't be more thankful for you and for all that you guys have been doing to help me out. If you enjoy this show, send them some love. Say some thanks to them. You can visit Mike at dawsangeles.com, Mike Amabile and Run Over Twice at runovertwice.com, or on farfromcenter.com. They have their own tab on our page. Brother Robert Johnson, go to the Whence Came You. Ian, go to nomapsrequired.com, and send them all some love and some thanks for all they're doing to help us out, to help me out, and help get some of these great shows off the ground.
Cool. 2 things. 1, I'm going to name my next dog ODA. and 2, let's listen to Mike Amabile now.
Yeah. All right. So that's a great idea. So we'll go ahead and throw it in. This is a track that you guys haven't heard yet. He won for his album Open Your Eyes, which is their latest album. But this is a track off of their Better Side of Me album, which is the last one that came out. It's called John and Marianne. And this is what I like so much about Mike Amabile and Run Over Twice. They're great musicians, but they got a great sense of humor. And just pay attention to this. This is kind of the country music's Romeo and Juliet, and it's funny. It's a great song. So this is John and Marianne by Mike Amabile and Run Over Twice. Check it out.
John and Marianne lived in an East Texas town. They earned their daily wages for the hot sun hit the ground. In an old rundown single shack apartment bedroom. And in the spring they watched the windows while the blue bonnets blew. They were happy as could be and all the birds would sing. When Johnny talked about buying that golden wedding ring, and Marianne would smile when she walked through the door. She'd do a little dance across the living room floor, and it was love, our love, forevermore. One day Johnny was at home and Marianne was at the shop. He heard a noise from the dresser drawer and it just wouldn't stop. When he swung open the drawer he couldn't believe his own eyes. He was watching for a man, but it wasn't his size. Next to the shiny watch laid a half-empty bottle of booze. He tilted back the handle like he had nothing left to lose. He thought about his life and how he loved his Marianne. And the whiskey flowed through his blood, into his heart it ran. And he was, yeah, he was a sorrow man. Well, it wasn't long before Johnny knew just what to do. He picked up a rusty razor, carved his wrist through and through. When he fell to the floor, he brought the bureau down with him. And he saw the homemade birthday card, but the lights were getting dim. He crawled to the card and read out loud what it said. And he stuck his bloody hand upside his own foolish head. It said, John, I hope this watch will keep our love light bright. We gotta get it to the jeweler so we can make it fit just right. And the world, it faded out of sight. Marianne came walking in. She saw the bloody mess. She threw down John was too far gone. She picked up the varnished birthday card that she had written on. She went through the mess and came across Johnny's gun. She looked up at the heavens and said, my God, what have I done? And when the bullet left the chamber, there was no sorrow anymore. She let out a little smile when her body hit the floor, and it was love, oh love, forevermore, forevermore.
All right, so again, that was Mike Amobile and Run Over Twice, the 2013 Texas Music Awards winners with John and Marianne. I love that track. So here we're going to go into an interview that we taped about an hour ago with author Mark Becker, great guy that I met last December at the La Jolla Writers Conference. He's got a huge resume behind him, a lot of experience, and he's an amazing author. Really cool book. Hope you guys check it out. Listen to this interview and check out his website. Okay, so we're sitting down with author Mark Becker. He's today's guest. He's the author of At Risk of Winning. You can check out his website at atriskofwinning.com. You can find him on Twitter at Mark Becker, or on Facebook you can just search for At Risk of Winning. I actually met Mark at the La Jolla Writers Conference last year, and like most of the people I try to have on this show, he's somebody that I just found phenomenally interesting. You know, we sat down at lunch together, I think the first day, and just had a long conversation. You know, being two authors sitting next to each other who are interested in a lot of the same things, we had a lot to talk about, and I really wanted to capture some of it here because I think the things that Mark talks about and writes about and lives would be things that are phenomenally interesting to our audience. So hello, Mark. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So one thing that I find pretty funny, I was looking around on your Facebook page, and under your political views, you list yourself as hardcore independent, and remember, they work for you. And I think it's a pretty big theme for here, and I think it's something that a lot of our society is starting to go with, and we're going away from that typical two-party system to where independents are really a real thing now, where people aren't just looking at the Republicans and Democrats. They're actually starting to look at independents and some other people and other parties that might have some great ideas for our countries out there. So I applaud you for that. I really, really like that. I got a good laugh out of it. So for our audience, could you please go through and explain a little bit about yourself and your background and let them get to know you a little bit better?
I'm a lawyer. I'm a mediator. I've settled over 5,000 disputes in my career, and I began writing right about the time that the President of the United States was elected in the courthouse that I worked in Tallahassee.
And that was Bush, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, and an author, and so that's it's one of the things that you write about a lot. So, what was it that brought you to writing, living this life, and being in the background that you were in? What was it one day that made you say, I should start writing this stuff down or start writing these thoughts down?
Oh, I saw 28 days of folly and stupidity.
That's a common theme in politics today.
it was just an exposure to politics in the raw, and I was doing the Forrest Gump thing where I was in the background, where I'd be on international TV and I'd be in the background of Jesse Jackson on stage, and he was there to make a speech, and all the political luminaries showed up, and I accidentally stepped on Jesse Jackson's foot as he stepped off the stage.
Did he call you a racist?
No, he growled at me. Yeah, and I looked at him, and he's wearing this gray pinstripe suit and running shoes.
That's hilarious. Did they at least match the suit?
Yeah, well, they did. He's a nappy dresser.
Yeah, well, that's funny. I wonder if I wonder if he's just always on the run, just so he doesn't end up like some of the other unfortunate politicians and activists of our day. That's funny. That's one of the things that the cameras will never catch. So that's a great.
Yeah, I
insight.
bumped elbows with a lot of political luminaries in my time. So he was one of them.
Yeah, well, that's fun. I mean, I guess that's a hell of an inspiration to bring you into writing about politics when you see kind of the dirty background of what's going on when the cameras aren't rolling, and all the PR people.
I had my shoes shined with the vice president.
Biden?
Yeah.
Did he have anything interesting to talk about, or is he one of the guys that just puts his head down?
I was in Washington, D.C. at the same hotel where Reagan got shot, the Hilton.
Yeah, actually, we were there a couple years ago to see the Dalai Lama. A little bit different from politics, but yeah.
Well, anyway, Biden was scheduled to make a speech to all the county commissioners in the country, and I was there in the audience, and he went on for about an hour, and he was complaining about everything and not offering any solutions about anything.
That sounds about right.
And I got up and I walked out, and I was in the lobby, and there was this 3-booth shoe shine stamp. So I thought, okay, I'll get my shoes shined. And as soon as I sat down, I heard the applause, and Biden comes out with his Secret Service contingent, and they wand me.
You were already getting your shoe shine, and they had to stop and wand you?
Oh, yeah, to make sure I wasn't, packing.
Yeah, while you're getting your shoe shine. That perfect place for an assassination at the shoe shine booth.
And he sat down next to me, and he said, and I turned to him and I said, good speech. And he said, what did you like about it? And I said, like I said, good speech.
My favorite part was where he said, thank you, good night.
Well, we had a good conversation. I told him about working at the courthouse in Tallahassee and how we picked the president in the courts and that sort of thing. And he's a really nice guy. Mm-hmm. I don't agree with him politically on very many things, but, I like him.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a running theme in politics. There's a lot of people that, like Obama and Biden both, I liked him. And even being a conservative, when I saw Obama running the first time and heard the things that he was saying, a part of me said, God, I really do hope that this guy's telling the truth, that he's not just full of it. And then he got into office and did kind of the opposite of everything he was saying he was going to do. And
the problem is, Rob, they're all full of it.
Yeah. It's a business now. It's no longer, when our country was it was founded by these great men who had jobs, and they left their job for a couple of years to run and to work in office and forward this country to a better means. And then they left and went back to work. And now we have people who go to college to be politicians, who spend their whole life learning to be politicians. So, in quotations, lying, they learn how to lie, how to just say what the people want to hear and how to keep themselves elected. And it's no longer the betterment of the country, it's the betterment of their political career.
Well, as soon as they get elected to office, they begin running for re-election. And you know how you can tell when a politician is lying, right?
How's that?
Their lips are moving.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Yeah, and there's a blog, one of your blogs that I want to get into in a minute that goes over that, but I want to get to this first. So you've got a lot of background, and obviously you've been a mediator. You've settled over 4,000 mediations, right? So
it's about 5,000.
About 5,000. So you've had 5,000 of these instances where your job was to listen to both sides and listen to bickering back and forth and come to an agreement. So, I mean, that's essentially politics today, is bickering back and forth. And do you think like the Senate and the Congress and the office of the president need a mediator? Do they need somebody like Mark Becker to come in there and say, hey, we're going to settle this today. Sit down, shut up. Let's get this worked out.
Yes.
Yes.
And my starting salary is $5 million a year.
Yeah. And endorsements.
I will take it from there.
Yeah, and we'll take it from there. I think that's a pretty good starting salary. We can just lay off a few political staffers, and I think we'll be okay.
Well, yeah, you can eliminate a whole bunch of buildings in downtown Washington, D.C., and pay for my salary easily.
Yeah, well, that's, they were saying Panetta, he lives here in California, but he has to charter like a 747 to fly back and forth to D.C. all the time with Secret Service, with all these other things. And you look at it's so easy to trim the fat. They're doing sequestration and they're trying to pretend like the answer is to fire teachers and shut down parks and things like that. No, cut the fat from D.C. There's a lot of fat to be cut.
And Nancy Pelosi was doing that for a long time. She would fly her family to Washington, D.C., and it cost the nation, I don't know, $600,000 every time the plane took off.
Part of me thinks that's a farce. I don't believe Pelosi is a human. I think she's just a robot that they have to send somewhere and plug in D.C. and maybe rewire her mainframe every once in a while, because I don't think a human can be that much of a dingbat.
Well, don't pay attention to the law. Just vote it into law, and we'll read it later.
Yeah, exactly. How scary is that? Like, sorry, you have to vote for this today. We can't tell you what's in it. After you vote for it and pass it, we'll tell you about it. How scary is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can go on and on forever about the state of politics today and how just discombobulated it is, but I'd like you to describe your latest book a little bit for the listeners. It's called At Risk of Winning. Again, you can go to atriskofwinning.com. It's a super interesting title. As soon as you told me the name of it, I immediately wanted to know more about it. And so can you share some with our listeners about what the book's about, the main themes, where you're going to go with the books? I know you're writing more books in this series. It is a series, not just a one-off. So can you give us a little insight into it?
It's the story of Max Masterson, who is raised from birth to be president of the United States. And in the first book, he is educated on the basics of what it takes to be a good president. Not anybody that ever became president before him. He is connected to the basic principles, which I call the maxims, and you can find them on page 66 of the book. And they're basically rules, kind of like the Ten Commandments, where he follows these rules to become president of the United States. He doesn't make speeches. He's not a member of any political party.
Wait, so a president who focuses more on action than giving grand speeches? Can that work?
There are no speeches. Actually, his announcement to become president was done at the Jefferson Memorial, and it lasted about 30 seconds, and the press got pissed off at him because it wasn't a major, soundbite for them.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a bad relationship with the press.
That's a good sign. That's a pretty good sign these days.
Well, we live in a world where news is reported on a 24/7 loop.
Mm-hmm.
And when things become stale, they replace them with the next thing that goes into the loop. And the less a person says, the better.
Right.
So he never makes any speeches. He only speaks in sound bites.
Oh, that's very smart. That's very smart. I mean, it's the exact opposite of what we have right now with somebody who makes grand speeches and then doesn't actually do the things that he's saying he's going to do. But it's funny because when you read, the Twitter sphere or you listen to the news after one of his speeches, they never talk about Obama saying, wow, what great things he did. They say, wow, what great speeches he gave. And there's a big difference between talking and action. And he's heavy on the talk. He's kind of light on the action right now.
Well, if you research anybody that ever was president of the United States, everything you get over the internet is sound bites, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
If the president makes a speech like the State of the Union speech that was done about a month ago, they talk for an hour. And the press takes little bits and pieces and they slant them according to their approach of life, and they present them to the American public. And that's what the people listen to, and they hear it repeatedly because it's on this loop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just, that's, in all honesty, if you have a 24-hour news cycle, nobody has 24 hours a day to actually listen to the news. So you're kind of at the beckoning of of these news channels who give you the sound bites because you don't have time to listen to the whole damn thing. And it's,
Yeah, that's the whole idea. Max Masterson never attends fundraisers. He never makes speeches. He just presents information to people that he thinks is important. And, in the second book, I burned down a good portion of Manhattan and melt down the Statue of Liberty. So I've got all these things happening in my books, and I'm going to write 12 of them before the end of his first term.
I saw a funny thing on Facebook yesterday with it was a picture of Bloomberg saying, we're going to have to take the liberty away. It can't be the Statue of Liberty. That's too much. We're going to make it the Statue of Government. And that's essentially, it seems like that's what they want to do now. Like liberty is when they say the Constitution is just an old document that doesn't pertain to our country anymore, it's at that point where you're going to say that you might as well melt down the Statue of Liberty. You might as well just take everything away and put us all in chains. And people think it's just like hateful rhetoric, but it's true. This country was founded on individual liberty, and they're doing everything they can to take it away.
I have this mental picture of the Statue of Liberty. Instead of holding the torch, it's a big gulp.
That would be an awesome one. I want to see that. Anybody out there listening who is great with Photoshop, please do that and get it on Facebook.
Yeah.
I want to see that. That's hilarious. So you got into a little bit about how Max Masterson was taught, but he was taught. His dad was a politician, right?
Yeah, he's a retired senator. His whole approach to politics was the preservation of privacy for Americans.
It sounds like a pretty good theme these days. So it's not a Manchurian Candidate where, Manchurian Global is going through and teaching him and making him a robot. His father is teaching him for the actual betterment of the country. Yes,
and the bad guy in the book is the director of Homeland Security.
It's getting downright prophetic. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's right on point. So when did you start writing this? Because it seems like the news today read your book and is taking notes directly from it.
Well, actually, it's precognition, because I write these things and then it happens in the news. Mm-hmm. I don't know why that happens, but it does.
Yeah. That's unbelievable. And like I said yesterday when we were talking, I think that is kind of the universe telling you that you're on the right track, because that's unbelievable. There's more than one circumstance, right? You were telling me about another instance recently that you were thinking about writing and making notes for, and it happened in the news, and it was a huge news story. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want to leave that out?
No, I wrote the chapter about a meteor hitting in the Middle East, and everybody blamed each other. They thought it was a nuclear attack.
And where did that happen recently?
In Russia.
Yeah, that was a very big news story.
And there was a Russian politician who blamed the United States for the meteor hitting. So, I don't know where this stuff comes from, but it's there.
I wonder if it's just you having so much background in politics and law. You just, there's this idea right now. The government is actually invested in this idea that social media can predict the future, because when people are trending things and certain things are going viral, it's kind of a way for them to gauge the attitude of what's going on. And almost like, they use predictive police work now, where they use nothing but statistical data to know where the next crime is going to happen. I wonder if it's just your huge amount of background, knowledge, and experience in politics. Something in your subconscious is already putting these links together and just knowing it's going to happen.
Well, I have to write the book before it actually happens in the real world. Because I don't want anybody to blame me for, actually following what's happening in the world. I want to be able to present ideas to the readers that nobody ever thought of before.
Right. Yeah, and so basically, audience, if you want to know the future of politics and maybe a crystal ball into the near future, I think you should pick up some of Mark Becker's books, because it looks like he's pretty right on point so far. So one thing that I took from your book, and we talked about this a lot at the La Jolla Writers Conference, was that the main character, Max Masterson, seems to have a lot of similarities to Ron Paul. And people today, and I heard Ann Coulter on Dennis Prager last week, I think, and she was making fun of libertarians, basically, saying that they're all college students and hippies. But me, coming from my military background, I was a Green Beret for 8 years, and more of my friends, so from like the salt of the earth, like military combat experience guys, all voted for Ron Paul. I know more military members that voted for Ron Paul than anybody else in the RNC. And these are people that would typically be seen as very conservative, but so many people are sick of the old blue and red, left and right, RNC, DNC, that they just went, no, we need some new blood. And I thought that was a real breath of fresh air when I saw that, and I see these tie-ins between Ron Paul and Max Masterson. Is that on purpose?
I got the title for my first book from Ron Paul's wife.
That's awesome. How can you explain that? How did that come to be?
When he was running for Congress in Texas, he made it through the primaries, and his wife turned to him and she said, "If you do any better, you're at risk of winning." And I went, "That's perfect. That's the perfect title for my book." And then when he came to Tallahassee to promote his book about the Constitution of the United States, I met him, shook his hand, gave him a signed copy of my book, and I signed it to his wife. And he turned to his staff and he said, "Make sure she gets this. Make sure she reads it."
That's awesome. And that's one of the things that really, I love Ron Paul to death. There's some things that I agree with him on, some things that I don't agree with him on. But when you're looking at the pros and cons, I am sided more with him than anybody else, just because of his defense of the Constitution and individual liberties.
Well, and now that he's retired, I can say this, and he was the only member of Congress that had the guts to actually say what he was thinking.
Yeah, it's a trait that it's long gone. It's long gone now. Politicians today have more PR staffers than rock stars and movie stars, and that's terrifying to me because a politician, you're supposed to be voting for that person and their views and what they think they're going to do, but it's not about that anymore. They don't get to say what they think. They have to say what their staffers think, what their PR thinks, what their media thinks is going to be the best soundbite and what's going to capture the most voters, rather than what they believe. And that's, like we talked about earlier, they just spout BS out of their mouth until they get into office, and then they go, here's what I'm really going to do.
Well, if you ever want to really analyze what politicians are saying to you, turn off the sound and watch the video.
That's
because, it's all body language. And Mitt Romney was a reluctant candidate. He didn't really want to run for president. He had all the bad body language that I can describe. And, my background is analyzing not what people say, but what their message is. Mm-hmm. And, he was just not the appropriate candidate to promote conservative politics.
Right.
Because he wasn't really a conservative. He never has been, and he never will be. And I met him when he was a child. He's a very honorable, honest guy, but he's just not the guy that should be president. When you're making $23 million a year or whatever he makes, why would you run for a job that cost 100 times what the job pays?
And you're going to get drugged through the mud, and your family, there are going to be people who spend millions of dollars and tons of man hours finding anything they can to make you look bad. He's got kids, he's got a family, he has a great reputation, and that's essentially what politics is today. When you get above the local level and you get into state or national politics, you have people whose entire job is to make you look horrible. It's no longer debate, it's debate and just dragging people through the mud, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, it's all, that's basically politics. You're either rich to start with, or you have access to more money than you could ever earn, and you run for a position that does not pay you what it costs to get there. And half of the people, or slightly less than half of the people, hate your guts and want to kill you.
Yeah. So who would want to run anymore? I mean, that's why we don't get the best and the brightest of our nation, because the only people that want to run and are willing to go through that are megalomaniacs who, well, unless you get a guy like that, you get a guy like Ron Paul or other politicians who just, you were saying Mitt Romney, who don't necessarily want to be president, but they know that our country is on the wrong track and they want to do something to help it. But those guys are few and far between now, because who's willing to do that? Like for me, I'm the last guy. I've had a lot of people tell me I should go into politics just because of the way that I speak and my views and things like that. But my answer is the same every time. I got too many skeletons in the closet, and I love my family too much to ever put them through that. I mean, it's no longer about...
People ask me whether I'm going to get married again, and I always say, give me a good reason. Politics is the same way. I just don't have a good reason, and I've been involved with a woman who's in prominent politics she's been at a high level in politics for a real long time, and she'll tell me things that she believes, but she would never go out and actually say them.
Right.
Because it would be political suicide.
Yeah. And that's scary today, because our country needs real ideas and real fixes and real changes, and people who are willing to stand up and maybe even sacrifice their job for what they believe in. And that just doesn't happen anymore. No,
you sit there and you bite your tongue, and you don't say what you're thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of this, we got into the whole, how do you know when a politician's lying thing earlier. And I've been reading a lot of stuff on your blog. Mark has a really good blog on atriskofwinning.com. And I printed up one that I really like. And would you mind if I read it word for word? Because this is awesome, and I think people would just love it.
Oh, go for it.
If you want to see this for yourself, again, go to atriskofwinning.com. We'll have the link on this podcast website on farfromcenter.com. This is just one. He's got many up there, but this is called Translating Politics. So Mark writes, when politicians say we need a balanced budget, they really mean China is offering great deals on loans to cover our deficit spending. No worries. When politicians say we need to address the budget deficit, they really mean we will put off the decision to cut spending until after I leave office. When politicians say we need to avert the looming fiscal crisis, they really mean someone else needs to deal with the fiscal crisis so I can get reelected, that's right on point. When politicians say we can't afford to go off the fiscal cliff, they really mean I can't decide whether to turn right or left, so I hope the landing will be soft. When politicians say we need to stop partisan bickering, they really mean all I did to get elected was partisan bickering. Don't expect me to stop now. When politicians say the Democrats have created this crisis, they really mean I blame all of our woes on the Democrats, so I won't need to make a decision that may prove to be unpopular. When politicians say the Republicans have created this crisis, they really mean I blame all of our woes on the Republicans, so I won't need to make a decision that will prove to be unpopular. Oh, that sounds familiar. When politicians say we don't want to end up like Greece, they really mean I would retire at 52 on a full government pension if I could get away with it. When politicians say we have averted the fiscal crisis, they really mean we have put off the solving of the fiscal crisis until after my term in office. And that's, we call it posturing, and it's scary that that's true, man. You're right on point with every one of those. And it's terrifying to see a guy like you with so much background in politics and law to be so on point. I mean, it really is. And when you put it black and white like that, and you put it down on paper and you read it, and you're a guy like me that stays tuned into the news, that's true, man. That's the word of God in politics right now. That is the God's honest truth. And if you want to see that, if you want to see more like that, again, go to atriskofwinning.com. Check out Mark's blog. He's got some really great stuff there that's right on point.
Why would you ever elect a rich person to Congress to solve poverty?
I heard a comedian not long ago saying that. I can't remember who it was, but he was saying the Republicans. It was Doug Benson on his. I can't remember what he was on, but he was saying, Republicans and Democrats both try to pretend like they're trying to solve poverty, and they both really care about the poor. Neither one of them give a shit, but the Democrats are just better at pretending like they care.
Yeah, why would you trust a middle-aged man to resolve abortion?
Yeah. Who's obviously never, I mean, he's never been aborted.
He's never going to be pregnant.
Yeah.
If you approach it from a practical standpoint, we rely on politicians to resolve a lot of problems that they're totally unqualified to resolve.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's so I'm here in Los Angeles. I listen to the Adam Carolla podcast quite a bit, and that's I've got to give an homage to that because that's what got me the idea of starting my own. And he had Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom on his broadcast a few weeks ago. And, Adam's really big on personal responsibility and saying, like, why is it that certain groups are having so much trouble these days while other groups aren't? And politicians never address the issue. So Adam was really pushing Gavin Newsom on broaching that issue and giving a real non-political human being answer as to why blacks and Hispanics have so much trouble and, Jews and whites and Asians seem to be okay. And he breaks it down to the family unit, saying, if you have this epidemic of fathers leaving families, the families grow up without that structure and there's so much trouble. And Gavin Newsom kept backing away, giving political answers, and he broke it down and finally said, look, I had a single mother growing up. We were hard off, and made it seem like he was growing up on food stamps with no money. Well, after he left, Adam did a little bit of research and found out Gavin Newsom's dad, who did leave their family when he was young, was the lead counsel for Getty Oil. So, yeah, they weren't living on government cheese. They were doing all right. But as a politician, he wanted to make it seem like, well, I know hardship. I come from hardship. He's a great-looking, young, sexy, rich, white guy who grew up, his dad might not have been there, but those checks were coming in. And that's that thing, like, same deal. He tries to run on this soapbox of, I come from hardship, I know what's going on, and hope that nobody will do a little bit of research on Google and find out that his dad's a millionaire. And I think that's just politics today. Just pretend, and deny. And when they have facts that come up that you can't deny anymore, find a way to pivot and just get it out of the news.
The only people that get elected in politics are rich people and people who have access to enormous amounts of money.
Yeah, that's true. Either they have it or their friends have it. And that's the thing that scares me about money and politics. This last election, they raised nearly $1 billion for the political campaigns. And to me, they brag about that, about how much money they raised. To me, that just means they sold a little bit of their soul for every one of those donations. They sold a couple votes. They sold their actual ideals and what may have brought them in the beginning into politics as maybe a good human being that just wanted to change the world into nothing more than a money machine, selling their ideas and selling their virtues and selling their votes to the highest bidder. And that's politics today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary. So I read one from your blog. There's another article that you sent me today that I thought was great. It's right on the money, and I think people from this audience would love to hear it. And it's an article that you wrote on the Declaration of War and what it used to be and what it is now. Can you explain that a little bit for our listeners?
We don't declare war anymore. We used to declare war on countries, and we used to go to the battlefield and put a bunch of boots on the ground, and there were a lot of people that died because of it. And nowadays, we just send drones over there and just blast them.
Yeah.
And the wars of the future will not be fought on battlefields.
So do you think can we even call them wars anymore when it gets down to that?
We can't call them wars because Congress has to declare war. And
Right.
They haven't done that since 1941 or 42. And we declared war on Romania and two other Eastern European countries that had no army, had no navy, and had no air force.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last time in American history that we ever declared war. We didn't declare war in Vietnam, not in Iraq, not in Afghanistan. We declared war against three countries that had no military.
Well, so do you know anything about proxy wars? It's a big issue that's going on right now, and it's been under the radar. Of course, the media doesn't want to report it, but we have proxy wars, and we fought them in Central America in the 80s, and we're fighting them in Africa now, where essentially our intelligence agencies have a dog in the fight. You know, the ultimate goal, or the guise, I guess, is stability for the world. So we have a place that we need stability, and we want a certain outcome, or we want a certain side of politics in power in a country. So we fight this proxy war where maybe we arm one side, but we don't send legitimate troops. You know, I was a Green Beret, so they don't have to really report when special operations goes into a country. They don't have to say boots on the ground, you know, and it's something pretty scary. And just for our listeners, just so you know, our ROE is pretty defined. If you know anything about battle today and you know our rules of engagement, which is the ROE, anytime you hear that we're dropping bombs or predator drones or anything, and somebody tells you there aren't any American boots on the ground, they're flat out lying. Like Mark said, turn off the volume and watch the video. They're full of shit right there, because our rules of engagement state if we're going to drop a bomb, or if we're going to have any kind of action like that could have collateral damage, we need American eyes on the ground seeing what's happening. So anytime you hear that, it's full of it. And so that's what our drone wars, our proxy wars, all these things that are going on right now, we're there. And do you think Congress even knows? Do you think they know and they're keeping it from us? Or do you think it's being compartmentalized and done without them even knowing about it?
We are everywhere.
Yeah, that's for true.
We are in every country in the world. And we have people giving intelligence to the people that make the decisions in our country. But we don't declare war anymore.
Right.
We don't go to war with a country. We go to war with ideas and people that are resistant to American causes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oil, for instance.
No, we would not. No, we never go to war for oil. Come on. It's only the most precious commodity to humanity today. So it's oil now. What do you think about this idea that water is going to become the new oil? Do you think we're going to be fighting wars for water soon?
I don't know. I grew up in the Great Lakes region, so
they got some water there.
Yeah, it's all that fresh water stays in the United States.
Yeah. Well, that is amazing. That's a great perspective on all of that, and it is scary. It seems like our government has been taken away from even our own government, and things have been compartmentalized to the point where not only do we not know about it, but our own government, who's supposed to be making the decisions on this and declaring war and doing these things, may not know about it either. And when you get to that point, it's like North Korea. People called Kim Jong-un crazy when he had Dennis Rodman come over, and he was using him as a political standpoint. But I think that was a cry for help. I was on the Malcolm Out Loud web TV program last week, and we talked about that quite a bit. I think it really is a cry for help. I think Kim Jong-un is a figurehead, but he doesn't actually have any power. And the people behind him, who are the old hardliner politicians and the government and the generals, have all the power. They're going off the grid. They're going nuts. They've taken everything away from him and compartmentalized it, and he's thrown up the only white flag he can. And if Dennis Rodman, all 7-foot tattoos and red hair of him is the only white flag he's got, he's thrown it. And that scares the shit out of me, that a nuclear power is having those internal divisions, and it looks like we're on the same track. Like, what separates us from these countries that we kind of laugh about and say, God, what a horrible way to run a country, when that's what it looks like we're doing too. We're compartmentalizing and taking power away from the people that were set up to have that power. Our checks and balances are gone. And it really does, it scares me. It scares me quite a bit, having that background in the military and in politics and knowing about geopolitics and what's going on in the world. So again, thank you very much, Mark. This has been a lot of fun. It's been very interesting. I hope we can have you back on. I love talking with you. I knew from the first moment we met that it was going to be a lot of fun, and we were going to have a lot of great conversations in the future. Again, if you want to follow Mark, the website is atriskofwinning.com. You can follow him on Twitter @Mark Becker, or you can go on Facebook and search At Risk of Winning. Or more importantly, if you're as interested in this book as I am, you know how to get it. Click through the support the show links on farfromcenter.com. Use the Amazon banners. Go and pick it up. You can get it on Kindle. You can get the book. You can love it. You can be an awake and informed American, and you can support a great author like Mark Becker. So, Mark, thank you very much for coming on the show. Hope to have you back soon.
And thank you, and I'd be happy to be back on your show.
Thanks again, Mark Becker, for joining us and giving us a little bit of your insight into what's going on in the world today. FarFromCenter.com and the Far From Center podcast are brought to you by Onnit. Click through the banner on FarFromCenter.com and buy yourself some Alpha Brain to supercharge your brain, get some New Mood to supercharge your well-being, or get yourself some Hemp Force protein to supercharge your body. All natural, all great ingredients, and again, they stand behind their product so much that if you don't fully like it, if you're not 100% satisfied, call them, tell them, you'll get your money back and keep the product. That's how much they stand behind it, and I stand behind it because I love it to death. I told Mike today we're sending him some Hemp Force protein because you can't beat that stuff. It tastes better, it feels better, it works better, it brings you in tune with your body and makes you a stronger, better, faster person.
I need that, man.
Yeah. It's an amazing thing, and it tastes great. That's
I just need energy. I mean, I need protein, and for me, I don't eat regularly.
Yeah,
I have
you're
maybe
busy.
one
You're
huge
all
meal
over
a
the
day at
place.
like 4 p.m.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about protein shakes. You know, people like to make fun of like the bodybuilders and the gym rats that have protein bottles all over the place, but when you're a busy guy like you and you can't sit down to eat regular meals, you just take a shake with you. You can mix it with water, milk, coconut water, whatever you want. You slurp it down. It takes 30 seconds to drink it, and you're good. It's slow-burning protein, so you got energy for the rest of the day instead of doing that one big meal and then having that sugar crash and you're down and the rest of your day is ruined.
Right. Just
take a couple shakes. If you only have time to eat one meal a day, shake at breakfast, shake at dinner, and then you're good. You're going to have that nice, even energy, and it's from a natural plant, so you're kind of at one with the universe. So again, Onnit. Thanks to Ian again. That Onnit banner is on the homepage of farfromcenter.com now. Click on it and go get yourself some Alpha Brain, New Mood, or Hemp Force, or just use the checkout code RPL. You'll get yourself a 10% discount, and you'll help support the show a little bit. So now we're going to go into this week's famous Freemason. This is astronaut Gordon Cooper. That's actually one of the things that brought me to Freemasonry was watching I can't remember which show it is, but one of those aliens are out there, crazy conspiracy shows, and it was about NASA and how all the Apollo 13 astronauts were Freemasons and all these other things, and that's just the way I look at the world. Some people look at the world and say, man, those people are running the world, we need to stop them. I'm the kind of guy that says, those people are running the world, I want to figure out what they're all about. And so this is astronaut Gordon Cooper, our weekly famous Freemason from Brother Robert Johnson of the Whence Came You podcast.
Hey, Robert Johnson here, host of the podcast Whence Came You and managing editor of the Midnight Freemasons website, bringing you the famous Freemason of the Week. Leroy Gordon Cooper, born March 6, 1927, passed away October 4th, 2004. Also known as Gordon Cooper, was an American aeronautical engineer, test pilot, and one of the 7 original astronauts in Project Mercury, the first manned space mission of the United States. Cooper piloted the longest and final Mercury spaceflight in 1963. He was the first American to sleep in space during that 34-hour mission and was the last American to be launched alone to conduct an entirely solo orbital mission. In 1965, Cooper flew as a command pilot of Gemini 5. Cooper was born in Shawnee, Oklahoma. Gordon grew up there and attended Shawnee High School, participating in football and track. During his senior year, his father, Leroy G. Cooper, was called back into the military service, and the family moved to Murray, Kentucky, where he graduated from high school. He was active in the Boy Scouts of America and achieved the second highest rank of Life Scout. In 1945, Cooper turned down the possibility of a football scholarship to enlist in the United States Marine Corps, but was too late to see combat in the Second World War. After completing 3 years of coursework at the University of Hawaii, he received a United States Army commission. Cooper met his first wife, Trudy, while in Hawaii, and they married in 1947. While at Edwards, Cooper was intrigued to read an announcement saying that a contract had been awarded to McDonnell Aircraft in St. Louis, Missouri to build a space capsule. Shortly after this, he was called to Washington, D.C. for a NASA briefing on Project Mercury and the part astronauts would play in it. Cooper went through the selection process with the other 109 pilots and was not surprised when he was accepted as the youngest of the first 7 American astronauts. Cooper was selected as a backup commander for Apollo 10 and hopped on for assignment as commander of Apollo 13. However, after falling out with NASA management, Alan Shepard was chosen instead. Shepard's crew was later moved on to Apollo 14, and the Apollo 13 command went to Jim Lovell. Having flown 222 hours in space, Cooper retired from NASA and the Air Force on July 31, 1970, as a colonel. Cooper developed Parkinson's disease late in life. At age 77, he died from a heart failure at his home in Ventura, California on October 4, 2004. His death occurred on the 47th anniversary of the Sputnik 1 launch and the same day that Spaceship One made its second official qualifying flight, winning the Ansari X Prize. And a couple of other interesting facts about Cooper was that Cooper claimed to have seen his first UFO while flying over West Germany in 1951, although he denied reports he had seen a UFO during his Mercury flight. And on April 29, 2007, some of Cooper's ashes, along with those of Star Trek actor James Doohan and 206 others, were launched from New Mexico on a suborbital memorial flight by a privately owned UP Aerospace Loft XL sounding rocket. Although the capsule carrying the ashes fell back toward Earth as planned, it was lost in the mountainous landscape. The search was thwarted by bad weather, but after a few weeks the capsule was found and the ashes it carried were returned to the families. The ashes were then launched on the Explorer's orbital mission on August 3, 2008, but were lost when the Falcon 1 rocket failed 2 minutes into the flight. On May 22, 2012, Cooper's ashes were among those of another 308 people, including the SpaceX flight that was bound for the International Space Station. This flight, using the Falcon launch vehicle and the Dragon capsule, was unmanned. He was a member of Carbondale Lodge No. 82 in Carbondale, Colorado.
All right, so that was our weekly famous Freemason, astronaut Gordon Cooper. Again, a big thank you to Brother Robert Johnson from the Whence Came You podcast. Go check him out on iTunes. Download their app on iPhone or Android. Send some love to their show. Tell them thanks for helping us out and for bringing this great inspiration to us. Now, before we close out the show, I'd like to give a big thanks to USA Cares. Some of you may know I'm a spokesman for this organization, and I can't say enough good things about them. They've given over $10 million in grants, not loans, but grants to veterans and active duty military in need since 2003. There's a lot of organizations out there. A lot of people have been doing a great job and digging deep since 9/11 to help support our military and support these various charities, but they're not all created equal. USA Cares gives the majority of the money they get to veterans and active duty in need. And that's a big thing these days because some of the biggest and most popular charities out there spend more money on advertising and administration than they do on actually helping people. USA Cares, that's not the case. They give almost all of their money, almost all of every dollar that you give to them goes to people in need, the people that you're giving the money for. So check them out. Follow them at usacares.org on Twitter, or go to usacares.org. Find out how you can help them help our veterans. So that will bring us to the end of the show. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. You know what to do to support the show. Click the support the show links on farfromcenter.com. And as we do at the end of every show, I'd ask if you have a drink in your hand or not, please raise it and give me a Berg Heil, Dea Presso Liber, and most importantly, God bless America.
Said you don't need money, you don't need fame, don't need